Hi everyone, thanks for joining our Overcome the Overwhelm kickoff today with some of these wonderful sessions by all of these great Forever ambassadors. I'm going to be presenting the print photo organization and digitization session, and I'm going to give you a quick overview of what we're going to be talking about. And I've broken it down into three main steps. So first you need to gather your items, and then you need to sort and label. And finally, you need to have fun. So in gathering, there's a lot of different places where you might have your photos or your videos stored. They might be in your purses, they might be in your basement, in your attic. You might have them in your picture frames behind other pictures that you have displayed. You might have a variety of things like shoe boxes or photo boxes. And some of these items you might want to be digitizing. Some of them you might want to just be saving and archiving. So first of all, when you're gathering, it might be a good idea to start looking, gather them all in one place and kind of check off the places where you've looked and searched for them. And maybe keep track of the people that you've asked for items from, maybe other family members, parents, in-laws, siblings, aunts, uncles, etc. And hopefully this sheet that we will be sending to you after the sessions today will help spur on some ideas of where you might find some of those things. Second is, are any of these photos in an album or in a magnetic album and they're kind of permanently stuck? So you have to be really careful about what you do with these specific photos and whether you should digitize them prior to removal or attempt to remove them by yourself, but you want to do this extremely carefully. So most of the time, I would personally recommend having them digitized, and Forever will do that for you. And if you indicate to them that you want them, you might have multiple photos on a page and you want them digitized individually, they can do that for you on a flatbed scanner. So that's something to be attentive to. And because if you remove the photos and you're not extremely careful, they could get damaged as you remove them. Then sorting, and this is probably the biggest job that we have to tackle. And there's a number of things that you can do when you're sorting your photos. You can sort by date or sort by theme, or maybe some combination of those, but that depends on what photos you're actually working with. So by date, sometimes it's really hard to know the exact date. So sometimes the best we can do is maybe a decade. Sometimes older photos, determining a specific year might be challenging or next to impossible, but you might be able to look at the information that's on the back of the photo or an envelope that it was sitting in. You can look at hairstyles or clothing, backgrounds, look at cars, buildings, signs, monuments, stores. They might give you some idea of when the photo was actually taken. You could also sort by year or month or even date, especially when an event spans over multiple days. Sometimes it's very easy to tell a specific date if it's like a vacation and you know what you did on a specific date, especially if it's relatively recent or you kept some type of journal or diary that has that information. Sorting by theme occurs really well when you're looking at holidays or birthdays, trips, very specific events like graduations or weddings, baptisms, bar mitzvahs, things like that. Or you might sort by individual people if you're trying to collect all the albums about a specific, or all the photos about a specific family member, and you're trying to do an album about somebody's life. You might want to be pulling out and sorting all of that photos that have that specific family member in it. Keeping your negatives with your photos is a really good idea because if you're going to digitize printed photos, it's actually better to do this from a negative. And that is because the image that is preserved on the negative actually has the entire image of what the photographer saw when they were looking through the camera's viewport. If you're just doing the photograph, sometimes those photographs are cropped because the dimensions and the aspect ratio on those images are not exactly what we have on the negative. Also, keeping the dates and the information with your photos. Sometimes when we're looking at our envelopes that have the photos in them, there might even be a processing date. Some some film actually had the date that the photo was taken, depending on what camera it was. There have been a number of cameras that did keep that information. So having that photo processing envelope and any information that you might have with those might be very helpful. Where to sort? Okay, if you have a large table, that can be extremely helpful. If you don't have a large table, I strongly recommend a photo-safe box like the Creative Memories Power Sort box, which there's a picture of here on the right-hand side. And you can see from this, it has dividers, it has compartments, it has a lid, it's photo-safe. The lid attaches, so even if you tip the box over, you are unlikely to actually spill your photos all over the place, which is definitely an issue with just regular shoe boxes or photo boxes that you might buy at your local craft store. And these Power Sort boxes will hold 1,200 photos that are either 4x6 or 5x7. And in the lid, there is a plastic like envelope that you can actually put items that are larger than that 5x7. So you can store some additional items in the lid safely. This is photo safe. So I want to talk about these dividers that are in here. The Creative Memories Power Sort box comes with these plastic dividers that you can write on, which really helps when you're labeling. But if you don't have those or you need some more, I have created some templates for you that will help make some of this a little bit easier, and we'll be sharing this document after the session also. So the top right image that you should be able to see on your screen has the dividers just the same size that they are in the image with the Creative Memories Power Sort box. And the bottom image is more like a file folder where you have an extra amount of space so that you could actually insert some photos in there. So let's say you have quite a few photos that you want to keep together. You can actually put them into that file slot, you might call it. So it folds, so you actually have a space at the bottom, so it kind of expands, so it's not just a simple fold. So these all will fit in the Creative Memories Power Sort box, and hopefully you'd find those useful. So you can write on the tabs, you can write on the front, you can put whatever information you want on them. You can just need to cut them out of photo-safe paper. Another option is using a photo-safe pencil, which is available also from Creative Memories. And I really recommend that you have a photo-safe pencil and do not use a pen on the back side of your photos, because those can actually imprint into the image on the front and kind of crack the ink away from the paper. And so it's not really a good idea to use something that's really pointy on the back side of your photo images. Third option is post-it notes, which is great if you're sorting over a big table and have lots of things. Just remember that they're not photo safe, so we wouldn't recommend storing them with your images or actually attaching them to the images, especially if you get any of that adhesive that's on the post-it note onto your images. That adhesive is not photo safe, as well as the paper is not photo safe, and you can truly damage your very precious images with post-it notes. A couple of other things is we all have blurry shots. We have all taken blurry shots. Give yourself permission to get rid of those. If they're too blurry to do anything with and you have another image, you know, of the same event or a similar picture taken at the same time, just get rid of those blurry shots, because if they're too blurry, no one's really going to appreciate them in the future. And we also went through a long phase of time where you could purchase a set of images and get a set of duplicate prints for free or for a penny. And those were great when you were sending them to other family members or maybe people that you were traveling with. But if you have some of those duplicates sitting around and you're not using them, just get rid of them. Um, Part of trying to go through and sorting everything is to be sure that you keep what is really important, but get rid of the things that you really don't need to keep anymore. So give yourself permission to let go of some of those items. However, I would caution that older family photos, there are some of those with, some great ancestor that you have, and you may not know who they are. I recommend keeping those because images from a long time ago are far and few between, and you never know when you will find some long lost cousin that will actually know who that person is. And I have heard many stories, and you've probably seen some via the internet or on Facebook or in some other group, of people who had hung on to certain photos and they had no idea who they were, and they ran into some other relative through some genealogy research, and they knew exactly who it was and where they were and how old they were, and you then have that information. So don't get rid of some of those older family photos, especially the ones that you have so few of these people, back in times where photos were not as prevalent as they are today. The last item I have under sorting and labeling is trying to keep track of where you've gathered photos from and what do you need to do with them and what you've printed and what you haven't printed. So I make use of lots of different log sheets to try to keep track of everything. I've shared with you a couple of things already. This is a photo printing log. So when I'm actually printing more current photos, where I have a lot of photos from each month, I'm keeping track of whether they came off of my cell phone, whether they were on my camera, or whether they were from some other device. We do get a lot of photos text messaged to us or shared with family members via our phone, but if we're not saving those to our photo stream, we may not actually ever print them out. So I try to keep track of a lot of these, and a log sheet like this helps with that process. Finally, the third major step is to have fun. If this becomes too much of a chore or too overwhelming, we're unlikely to finish or get it to a state where we can actually share it with family and friends and leave it to our children and grandchildren. So put on your favorite music or a fun podcast and enjoy the process, enjoy the time while you're doing it. Maybe do this with friends, even if you can do it via Zoom or in person. That it's always more fun when you have the ability to be socializing with other people. And I know that most of the ambassadors who are participating in this Overcome the Overwhelm in this month, they are also offering lots of opportunities to Zoom and interact and work with them as well as work with other people. So taking advantage of that is really helpful while you're working on this process. And when you get stuck, sometimes it's great to hold up a photo and say, anybody have any ideas of when this might be, or maybe you can help track down some other information. And finally, reward yourself, because every photo sorted is an important treasure for future generations. And so even if you're only able to tackle a little bit at a time, that's huge. It's how we tackle the elephant by one bite at a time is very important to this whole process. So don't forget to reward yourself and give yourself a pat on the back. So again, the three main steps of all of this is gathering items, sorting and labeling, and having fun. And I have a number of handouts that will be sent to you and provided for you to hopefully help you with some of these different steps with looking at your printed photos and organizing and digitizing them. So I am going to close the pre-recorded video, and I'm hopeful that if you have any questions, I will be happy to answer them as we continue on here. So thank you very much for your attention.